MaXXXine is directed by Ty West and stars Mia Goth, Elizabeth Debicki, and among others. In this story, it is the third film in the trilogy that Ty West had set up with previously with X and Pearl. And Maxine is pretty much having to survive from this killer known as the Night Stalker, while also trying to find her way into Hollywood that's set in the 80s. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was directed by Ty West, who I've talked previously about in my other videos when it came to X and Pearl. And I really admire the guy as director. I've had to see more of his films, but I have seen so far his early works, including Cabin Fever 2 and also The House of the Devil. And so I've got to check out more of his stuff eventually down the line, but I do find him as a fascinating director, and he definitely likes to have that kind of old school 80s aesthetic that he goes for. And the good throwbacks to 80s type of horror films. And with this trilogy that he set up, it's got me really excited when X came out, because from the previews when that movie came out, it really made me feel like that he was going for that, like a throwback to not only Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but those type of exploitation films from the 70s. And then he continued that success after that movie with Pearl, where he was able to go with the golden age of Hollywood and deal with the whole Wizard of Oz type of era of Hollywood and make it into a slasher film and everything. And then in this one, it got me really interested, especially since this was teased at the end of Pearl, where it's now taking the style of a giallo film that's going in that kind of mystery type angle where a killer is going around and killing people in Hollywood. And it's also doing like a interesting commentary on the way that things were going around the 80s at the time. And so I was already excited with this movie enough as it was with the trailers and since it was teased at the end of Pearl. And so going into this film, I couldn't be even more hyped. And after upon seeing it, I can say that I do enjoy the film, but there is some things that it does leave a lot to be desired in a lot of things. I feel like it could have really done a lot more with and really done a different direction than what I probably could have thought it was going for. But with that being said, I still had a good time with this movie a lot. And so to get my pros out of the way, I thought the performances in this were all fantastic. Especially Mia Goth. I mean, what could I say? She's really proven herself with these movies that she keeps doing as Maxine and also in Pearl, where I thought she really was very snubbed for an Oscar contender for that movie because she really pulled it off in that movie. And Pearl is my favorite of this trilogy, but I'm just saying that she really knows how to make it feel like you feel for her character and with her emotions and everything. And I'm glad that she's really established herself as a scream queen, especially with not only this trilogy, but also last year with Infinity Pool. And so she once again shines in this one, and you can really feel her character, the way that she's just trying to make it in Hollywood and everything, and trying to work her way up into getting this horror film called The Puritan 2, and the struggles that she goes through, and then also what they touch based on her PTSD and stuff, I thought was very interesting. And just the way that it really builds around with her character, I thought was an interesting journey for her. And so she was great. And then the rest of the cast, what can I say? Kevin Bacon, he steals a lot of the scenes like he normally does, playing this kind of sleazy private detective that's looking for her and stuff. He definitely does chew some scenery out that's pretty fun to watch. And, it's Kevin Bacon, so you're bound to get some really good stuff out of him, but also playing that typical role that you would see him with a lot of movies that he plays in. So he was great. And then seeing the other interesting celebrity cast they have in this too, like Giancarlo Esposito, what can I say? The guy I've always enjoyed everything he's been in, especially with the Breaking Bad series. And just earlier he had with Abigail, he was great in that one too. And so the guy just makes so much, he just has so much charisma on screen that he's just so much fun to watch. And he definitely is. He plays the agent of Maxine in this, where he's trying to get her jobs and stuff. And there's also something to him that I won't reveal, but but it comes into play in the third act that I thought was really interesting. So he was great. And then Elizabeth Debicki, of course, I really enjoy her as an actress, and she plays the director of the movie that she's filming, and she has that very that no nonsense attitude with trying to get Maxine to get prepared for her film and everything. And I really love her in this movie, where she was able to she has that very commanding type of presence to her. And then you also got other ones that show up too, like Michelle Monaghan. She was great as the detective with Bobby Carnival, playing these detectives that are trying to look for the killer and stuff. And so all the performances are really top notch, and it gives you that vibe of what you expect from the 80s that Ty West is going for. And speaking of the 80s, the production design and the way that West was able to capture a lot of this stuff that was during that time period was not only spot on, especially with some of the newsreels that we hear about, the clothes, the cars, everything, the music definitely comes into play with that, and I really enjoy the kind of score that it plays that has this kind of giallo like mirror mystery type of vibe that was also kind of giving me cues like it feels like a 80s version score to LA Noire. You remember LA Noire, the video game, where you were able to solve clues and stuff and look for murders and solve murders and stuff in the 40s? Well, imagine that in the 80s with that kind of score. And I mean that in a good way, because it definitely had that kind of feeling like it would have been like, that kind of noirish type of feel, but also that, that giallo type of stuff that we would get from movies that were made in Italy that deal with, solving murders and stuff. And so that was great. And then you also have the brutality. What can I say? I mean, this may not be, this I think probably is on par with maybe X. I think this one might probably be the most brutalist that I've seen, because there was some brutal stuff in the other two films, but this one, let's just say there's some stuff in this I couldn't believe that, what I was seeing, and it doesn't hold back on a lot of the gore, because it definitely, keeps it that kind of groove that you expect from a lot of the kills that take place. And so I'm glad movies like this still get made, where you get to see a lot of slasher films that don't hold no bars. So I'm not going to reveal anything, but it definitely goes for it in a lot of parts, and it mainly has to do with I'm just going to describe. There's a part where the head explodes. I'll leave it there. Like, that was like, whoa, But and then on top of that, I also got to really appreciate that the little like stuff that we get to see during that period. Like, you get to see also the Bates Motel in one part, and you see MaXXXine run around the Hollywood lot and everything. Like, I really enjoy that stuff, because it really makes me wonder what it was like being on the sets of Hollywood films and stuff. And it also had a nice, it kind of also reminded me of Scream 3 in that regard, with the whole run around the backlight and everything. I thought, so that was great. Now, if I have to get into some of my cons, I will have to say that, unfortunately, one of the things that does hold the movie back quite a bit is actually the way it's very predictable, because I'm not going to spoil anything, but basically there's something that happens at the beginning of the movie that I already called where it was going to, especially when we get to our reveal with the killer at the end of it. And I felt like, I get the movie is trying to go for something that plays into the whole reason why the killer is going after MaXXXine and stuff, but I really felt like I think a different idea. I think the movie probably would have explored more with it, or maybe done something different where you didn't have to show a certain thing in the beginning of the film. Would have made it probably more impactful for me. And then on top of that, I also felt like with all the characters that they also spread out throughout the movie that are all, intertwined with MaXXXine's storyline, I felt like there was more they really could have added on top of it, because it feels like we didn't get enough of them, especially with Elizabeth Debicki's character. There's stuff with Kevin Bacon's character that I felt like we could have really spent more time with. And then you also have the stuff that's going on with the two cops that are investigating. There's a lot of things they really could have pushed out more, because the movie is only about a little over an hour and 40 minutes, I believe, with credits. And so it really seems like they were trying to juggle so many things all at once, and it gets a little bit, not necessarily convoluted, but it tries to tell itself all together toward the end where everything comes forward. And it seems like this is the kind of movie that, if they wanted to, they could have really made it maybe at least 2 hours or longer to try to maybe really plan some stuff out, especially with this being the final, well, for now, the final film of the trilogy, unless Ty West decides to do another one. But for now, I mean, I just felt like there's more they really could have done with, because one of the things I also felt like was a missed opportunity was the stuff that's involving with the behind the scenes and everything that MaXXXine's working on. I felt like they really could have showed more of what she's capable of doing as an actress, because other than the beginning, when she's really, when she gets her headshots in and basically telling the board that she's wanting to get into the business and everything, we don't really get to see much of her really doing much, like acting out certain scenes and stuff. Because I think that was one of the things I really appreciated with Pearl in that, and also of X, was that you got to see more of the stuff that involved with the characters in that, where the characters were actually going on their journey to becoming big and famous. Here, I felt like we are getting that. There's teases of it, but it's not really enough, because the movie runs very short to where you're not really getting a whole lot of what MaXXXine really does. And so that was definitely something I wish that they could have pushed more with, to really fulfill more of her journey and give it more of that extra punch that it really showcase of where it leads to in the end of it. But with that being said, though, I still did have a good time with this movie, and as a good slasher film and a good throwback to 80s movies like Ty West does in the other films, it still works. I still prefer X and Pearl over this, but I still, and it's my least of the trilogy, but I still thought it was a good time. With that, I'm going to give the film a compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. And so, for those of you who have also seen MaXXXine and also the other films, let me know in the comments about what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.